just start doing it. One. 14. 7. 2, please.
Oh, no, I didn't hear you.
So.
So how's the day? It's cold. So it's pretty early, right? Not yet to get snow. Yeah. Okay, so how is the project? How is the model? Is it easy? Yeah, it's okay. But it's not first. So what do you do with it? What do you do with it?
We dealt with I guess because I was reading a lot of their files about people who had committed or had murdered someone, and I guess for a lot of people who did that, rage was a huge problem, and that was something. And a lot of them also didn't have higher I read that I think 60% of people in prison were affected by alcohol in utero, and that causes so many problems, and I was reading the statistics on that. And so a lot of these people who end up murdering someone, they don't, I guess they don't really understand their own emotions, and they don't really see what happens from point A to point B once they experience the rage and then act upon it. So I guess I would do what I read, what I learned from other psychologists who have worked with people who have done that, and I would say that just teaching them about stress and how it affects the body, and teaching them about the difference between your emotions and someone else's actions, and how to separate the two, and slowing down and learning how to breathe in a moment when you are feeling angry. And also, I think it's really important for psychologists to keep in mind where a person is, especially where a person is if they've gotten to prison, their backstory, what they went through as a child. So I looked at this one PowerPoint called Prison Health Best Practices, and I learned about the 60% of people who are in prison and who were affected by alcohol in utero, and all the different things to keep in mind as a psychologist. So a study of 18-year-old youth with FASD, which is, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but these are people who have, like I said, been affected by alcohol in utero. So what they found was that organization or self-care and hygiene was that of an 11-year-old. Social skill development was that of a 7-year-old. Word recognition, 16-year-old. Physical maturity, 18-year-old. Emotional maturity, 6-year-old. Understand time and money like an 8-year-old. Think and process like a 6-year-old. So emotional maturity and think and process both 6 years old, and social skill development 7. Sound verbally 20. So I think as a psychologist, you have to keep that in mind, and what they may need more of in order to understand mindfulness and how to be calm in prison. And breathing techniques are really important. There was one thing I read about a woman who had murdered someone at a time when she was enraged, and whenever she started to feel rage while she was in prison, she would focus on her breathing, remember that whatever she was feeling didn't have to do with the other person who was maybe maybe prior to her learning about mindfulness, she would think that they were the ones instigating her, and then she realized like the difference learning about that. So I would talk to the inmates about that, and overall health and well-being techniques and tools that they may not have learned. A lot of the people in prison, like a very, very high percent, were in foster care or were raised by people who weren't their parents, and were born into being addicted to drugs already, things like that. So keeping in mind those kinds of things and the lack of education they may have about their own body and their mind.
Have you been visiting prisons in your life?
What?
Have you been visiting any prison around here?
I'm going to visit the one that my boyfriend works at, the state prison.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to visit because he wants me to see what it's like inside there, so I can understand his work a little bit better and meet some of the caseworkers there. Since I'm going to be a psychology major, I could be a caseworker there in about a year when I graduate. But I thought it was really interesting what you said about most of them having like emotional skills and things, like 6-year-olds and children, because he tells me that all the time. He said a lot of them just, this is because I feel like I'm babysitting sometimes because a lot of them just don't understand it on like an adult level. He said, I don't know if it's because they've been in here so long or what, but he said the best punishment that works for them too, because he's a corrections officer, he has to punish them a lot, and you know, he said the best punishment that works on them is things that work on children. Like if he gives them literally like a timeout chair, because they have open blocks there, they don't stay in cells, but if he literally puts a timeout chair in the corner, makes them sit in that chair, and it embarrasses them, it does way better than if he, you know, tells them that they're going to get their time cuts taken away and things like that. Like the adult consequences don't scare hardly any of them, but like embarrassing them in front of their friends or like taking away their playtime when they play basketball and stuff works so much better. And I feel like that might have something to do with it. If they're like thinking on, some of them are thinking on that level, you know, punishing them on that level works, but.
Especially because such a high number of inmates do have cognitive problems, and if they do have a history of drugs and alcohol, which such a high percentage of them do, then they probably experienced arrested development, or if they're addicted to drugs at a certain age, they haven't developed past that age where they started being addicted to the drug.
Right.
My brother was in Kentucky prison for over a year and a half for drug trafficking, and he talked to me a lot about his experience. And when he actually got into, once he was actually put into prison, he had actually had a sponsor and had improved his life so much, and he was clean. But it's just like the judicial system is so messed up that it took so long to actually get him into prison. Like his court date was rescheduled like six different times in like different months, and finally he was put into prison. Luckily, when he wasn't still dealing with withdrawals, but he talked about how a lot of the, and this also has to do with a project that I did about improving the prison system in the United States, and I learned a lot about the training that goes on for a lot of prison guards, the lack of training, and just because of the amount of funds that we have to train people and to hire more psychologists and people to come in and teach the prison guards about what's going on with these people mentally and how to reduce recidivism rates and things like that. It's just not a priority for a lot of people, but at this time, it seems like our prison system has become like the new, what do they call it? Have you heard about this? Like they're calling the prison system now what used to be like the nut house. You know?
Oh, yeah.
The asylum. They're calling the prison system the asylum now. It's like a place where they just put people who can afford to get a psychiatrist or a therapist or the proper medication, because a lot of these people are dealing with mental illness. But I talked to my brother about it. He said that like a lot of the prison guards got off on punishing them. Like they would antagonize a lot of the prisoners. And if you've ever seen Orange is the New Black, it's not good. I mean, it's like my brother didn't have experiences like that, but it's like when you hear about prison guards mistreating prisoners, it does. It does happen quite a bit.
Yeah, I forgot.
The bigger prisons, especially like Pendleton in our state, is really bad there. He visited there. Luckily, the one that he works at in Tell City is based on rehabilitation. Like they're allowed to get time cuts for working and doing programs. So a lot of the things they do there is based on like getting them out of prison and like helping them. So they don't have as much of that there. But he went to Pendleton and visited, and it scared him because he said that they had a whole ward of people that were considered to have mental illness. And he said there was a man there just beating his head on the glass, and he was just bleeding everywhere, and the prison guards just stood there and looked at him because they're like, well, he does it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can they do anything about it? And they're like, no, he just does that all the time. Just leave him alone.
You live in Indiana?
Yeah, I live in Indiana, yeah.
There was a Kentucky prison that I did some research on for the paper I was telling you about, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but there's a high population of people who are considered to have mental illnesses, and it's really disgusting. Like there was a photographer came in, and a photographer journalist came in and did a story on it, and took pictures of people, and it was like they just looked like caged animals, and it was really, really disgusting to see. The good news is that in a lot of places around the world, I did a lot of research on places that are investing in improving prison systems. And they're, like, I assume that it was just in a lot of like Scandinavian countries, because I always hear about them focusing more on creating an environment that's more like rehabilitation. But there are places all around the world, like Latin America, Korea. Anyway, but what they did was they trained the prison guards to be like their family, even like murderers, rapists. Like these people, the prison guards will sit with them at lunch and talk to them about their day and become friends, and like they're allowed to leave the prison and like get dinner at the prison guards' homes. And they do have cameras, but like they hide them with like a lot of greenery and stuff, and they make it look like a really nice environment. So when they go out into the real world after they get out, they've gotten used to living in a nice environment where they have learned social skills and learn to feel love, because a lot of them, you know, if they were raped, if they maybe raped somebody, like they were probably raped when they were younger, or they were abused, or they, you know, it's just.
And a lot of them don't know how to live when they get out of prison, because they don't know what to do without somebody telling them what to wear, and when they can walk down to the chow hall and like where to sleep, and what they can and can't eat, what they can and can't have and say. A lot of them don't really know how to live the regular life.
Working by your boyfriend's company? He
works at Branchville in Tell City.
Oh, I see.
It's a state prison. It's a work prison where they work in like sawmills and different things during the day to get time cuts. And it's an open block. They have cells in their segregated housing unit where like if they get in trouble for like attacking another one or whatever, they have to be put in a cell there. But the rest of it is like dormitories, and it's open block. Like the beds are just out in the open, and everyone just mills around together when they're not working. So
they have the factory for them to work.
yeah, they have a lot of things that they can do. Like a lot of them have to take care of like the buildings, like maintenance, and then a lot of them have to do like grounds work. And they have like a sawmill where they make all kinds of things out of cedar. Like they sell bird houses and dog houses and stuff. So I mean, it's a max level prison, but they don't have as much of the like abuse and the attacks and things there on the guards or each other, because it's rehab based. Like they're supposed to go to programs, like they're encouraged to go to like church and like guest speakers and things like that, and they like get rewarded for good behavior. So I mean, it's a lot better than most of the state prisons.
Okay. Yeah. So this one is the always talk about mental illness in jail. You can imagine your cell, right? You stay in one room for a week. For a month, it's going to be crazy, right? When someone, especially, it's normal, it's for human to be confined in a space, a small space, for certain periods of time, right? So we have some kind of freedom. We cut the birds in the cage, when someone tries to find some ways to fly out of the human. So that's normal. We have the kind of mental illness, mental problems in the jail. It's born and so forth. And of course, compared with the prison system here, with the other third world countries, is quite different. The inmates, offenders, work from morning to night. But somehow, the taxpayer let us to pay for their sentence in the jail, right? Sometimes it's things is fair, and especially in California, I have one of my friends is parole officer, parole officer. He mentioned that because nowadays overflow overcrowded in California, so they release many inmates on the street, and sometimes it's made a danger public health too, but they have no choice. It's real tough, especially for one who commits.
I think the United States has, I believe, twice the percentage of people in jail than any other country in the world. Any country, including China.
With the number of women incarcerated. Just as a war on drugs, though. That's what it happened. And repeat offenders.
Yeah.
We have more people.
Always, yeah, instead of
they always come back. Always come back.
This is how it should happen. Okay, who like to start next? You?
I'll go next. Yeah,
Okay,
I
please.
did counseling on someone that was incarcerated for domestic violence. And I used the domestic violence PowerPoint, and I just used some of the points out of that and elaborated on it myself. First, I had a quote that I liked. It says, "Batter intervention is a public safety program. It's not treatment, and you must keep the focus on victim safety. Otherwise, the criminal justice system is only offering the batter a safe haven to escape the consequences of his offense." Because they're coming out with a lot of programs where instead of incarcerating someone, that they put them in this batter intervention, but it's becoming like it doesn't work as well, but it doesn't work any better either, so we're just trying to figure out something else to do. But I like that quote because it would be important in reminding me that if I were to treat someone that has committed domestic violence, that they need help and guidance, but they don't need a place to hide from their mistakes to make it feel okay. The victim needs to be addressed to the offender as well to remind why we are seeking to get them help in the first place. Another important point to make on the subject is to stop the cycle of victim blaming. The power balance between the offender and the victim needs to be addressed. Why does he or she feel they need to overpower the other person? Why do they feel they need to do it physically and with harsh words? And why do they feel that the victim deserved that behavior, brought it upon themselves? Because many times offenders say that the victim provoked them, which can be true, but whether they did it intentionally or not, that's not the way to solve it, is with violence. Because sometimes they can intentionally provoke them. Yes, sometimes victims will, yell back, and sometimes will even say stuff like, well, why don't you just hit me then, and things like that. And then other times, it's just the victim's behavior. Like sometimes just crying or like trying to hide or like run away can provoke the person even more. So whether it's intentional or not, they need to be aware of what triggers them and why it triggers them so that we can stop it. And sometimes the offenders don't really know what constitutes abuse, because just like Rebecca was talking about, people that have been incarcerated for certain crimes, sometimes those same crimes were enacted on them that in their mind makes it okay or normal to them. So, like if their mother or father was abusive to them, then that's what they grew up seeing, so then they enact that as well, because in their mind, that's how a family works to them. And so sometimes that's never been addressed to them. They're sitting in jail or in prison for something that they thought was normal, and no one's taken the time to sit down and talk to them and say, this is considered abuse. To say these things or do these things is harmful and abusive, and it's not the proper way to handle something. And so treatments that I thought might work for this, CBT would be effective because it changes negative or inappropriate pathways of thoughts. A lot of times offenders say they will see red or black out when they assault their victims, meaning they're very emotionally reactive, and they skip over the steps where they should be evaluating the situation and then making decisions on how to handle it in a proper way. So teaching them to slow down and take time to make decisions before they act, and then evaluate the consequences before they act is a really important skill. And then some other important skills I would teach them are relationship skills that they might lack. So healthy communication, boundaries. Sometimes they need to be taught about boundaries in a relationship, like, you can't always tell that person when they can and can't leave the house. You know, they need to be taught that that's not acceptable. Maybe your parents did that, or someone that you know did that to you, but you cannot do that. There are certain boundaries that other people have that you need to start developing, and then you'll have a healthy relationship. And then they can be taught healthy ways of relieving stress, such as techniques taught in MBSR, where they can learn meditation. They can learn a lot of techniques to, you know, learn about stopping in their tracks, taking some breaths, and calming down before they make decisions, and engaging in violent behavior. And then later, maybe when they're done with their treatment, you know, they might not be a repeat offender again because someone's finally given them the skills to deal with their own emotions and own past with domestic violence.
So the question is, let's say if you're a psychologist and go into the jail, you provide them these affirmations. So how could you convince them it's good enough?
But you convince them that it works for them. Well, if they're skeptical about it, then I would just give them some success stories from some other people I would research, and maybe not necessarily statistics, because a lot of times they might not believe you if you're just giving statistics. They might think you made it up. But I would just give them some like personal success stories of other people, whether I treated them or not. I would just give them some success stories so that they feel like, you know, it worked for someone else, maybe it'll work for me.
So now you say that most of them, because they are confined in the cells, so their level of intelligence is reducing too, right? Because it raises levels. And so even you try to explain, but they don't want to understand. They
You have
don't
to start
want
really, really
they want
small.
to,
You would have to talk to them and figure out where they're at first, and then if they're at a lower level of development or intelligence, I would just start really small, then with small steps, like teaching them interpersonal skills first, so that they start getting a basis of that, and then I would start teaching them the other things, like go on a staircase.
I went to traditional prison in Louisville. This I forgot the name, but that's a place where they serve their terms already, so they did come there to stay a few months.
Like a halfway house?
Like
a halfway house?
Like a halfway house, yeah, that's right. So they learn the skill, any skill, any skill to adapt it to a new life.
Is it in downtown Louisville?
Yeah.
Is it on 2nd Street?
Yeah, it's right. This.
Yeah, my brother was there for a while.
This, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Some of them they may go out to work, but they have to be back by 6 o'clock. If they violate the rule, they go back to the prison. It's scary. Yeah. So it's very interesting to have that kind of forum. And one of the professors from Spartan University, she working with the disabled
Beacon House.
Yeah.
The Beacon House?
What's it?
Beacon House?
So Beacon, yeah, that's different. That's another one. Okay. Anyway, so she worked with them in this kind of treatment that we need to specify next time. Okay, so the next one, please.
I can go.
Yeah, please.
I kind of dealt with something similar to her. I chose to pick someone who had physically abused their wife, and that's what he was in prison for. So basically, I just went in there. I started talking to him, and after talking to him, I kind of realized that he really regrets what he did, and he wished he could take it back. And then he also views himself, like, it's not that he views himself as a really bad person for doing this. So I told him kind of to be able, that he can't change the past, and that he needs to come to terms with that, and that also I told him that yes, the actions you did were wrong in themselves, and I was glad that he was able to see them that way, but he shouldn't view himself as being a bad person because of this. He should kind of try to separate himself from those actions, because he was kind of, in that he was acting on his emotions there. And just because he did something bad one time doesn't make him a bad person. So that's kind of the first thing I try to communicate to him there. And also, he has I kind of just made up a personality here, and then, just kind of came up with ways to go about addressing it. So I decided that Fred is actually what I call him. He has a tendency to, let his emotions take over when he gets upset, as was evident, I think, because of the fact that he was involved in domestic violence there. So I kind of explained that when he finds himself getting frustrated, to try to remove himself from the situation and to try to recognize, I guess, the feelings that he is having. He could do this by paying attention to maybe the physical symptoms that he is currently experiencing, such, is his heart beating fast, is he breathing heavily, is he, is he profusely sweating, is he basically just kind of be able to recognize, what's going on exactly and try to, and once he recognizes that, if he can try to, again, step back and remove himself from that and not let the emotions control him, rather than just observe what is going on. I guess other than that, I also encouraged him to practice mindfulness on a daily basis, because that can help relieve stress. However, he didn't think he was really that stressed. So I asked him to kind of take a minute and observe again how he felt. And he did admit that he did feel a little uptight, but he didn't know why. And I explained to him that was very common. Even in myself, I experienced that if I don't take the time to, I guess, kind of just, what's the word I'm looking for? If I don't take the time, if I just go about life just like going really fast without taking the time out, I don't realize really how stressed out I can become. So this is kind of, I guess, what I was going for with that. A lot of times we don't know how stressed out we really are. And first, I guess, I want him to recognize that he is indeed stressed out, and then maybe he would be more likely to be able to commit to practicing mindfulness now that he realizes how stressed out he really is. So those are the techniques that I employed.
So when you talk about helping him to separate himself from the previous action, right?
Mm-hmm.
So remember what type of approaches that we learned from the mindfulness-based therapist approaches like MBSR, MBCT, DBT, or ACT. Which one is that?
I forget, honestly. I get it mixed up. I don't know which exact one that is. Yeah, I don't know. I just know the basic mindfulness concepts. And I couldn't recall and tell you which exactly precise what's the word, precise, whether it be MBSR, ACT, DBT, what have you. I don't know where exactly that would be classified as.
So it's better if you can point to the model, like you say about DBT, right? The wise mind.
I said
DBT, the wise mind.
DBT
Right.
and MBSR was where I was using that.
Okay. Remember we talked about self-context and self-context. Remember that? This is ACD.
Yeah.
You separate yourself from even your mind, even your thought. Remember that? You observe this.
Yeah, that's I guess what I was going for. I just didn't classify it that way.
So that's more.
Okay.
Before it's easy to refer them. Yeah, that more.
Maybe one day when we finish early, we can do a really quick little refresher for everybody on the different ones. Maybe one day when we finish early or something, we should do that just so we can remember them. Because I have to look them up all the time too.
Oh, sure.
I remember these two for this assignment, but sometimes I have to look them up.
So the MBSR is for stress, right? Basically for stress, anxiety, right?
Yeah.
The MBCT is for depression, suicides, right? The DBT is for borderline.
Oh, personality.
Yes. Yeah. And the ACT is sometimes a small body. And has this more broad approach. It has more broad approach. It has a six core principle, remember? Value, present, diffusion, this is core principle, self-content, commitment. So
Which one was for suicide?
that's for
That's
TDT. And it has the wise minds.
ACT has wise mind.
No, DBT,
DBT,
the
okay.
wise mind. Yeah, wise mind and emotion regulation. Remember that for DBT? Okay, anyway, let's see if we remember it. Yeah. Yeah, please.
Yeah, mine's fairly short because it's based on like drug addictions. Because for drugs, we just kind of put people in jail. We don't introduce them to any like rehabilitation or anything, which is absolutely wrong. But we have to have something for it since we do it. So I just said that they could use meditation to like refocus their attention away from their cravings, and they might be dealing with guilt, and that's why they return to their habits. I don't know that really makes sense, but or it's just too stressful to stop and try to move forward. So, focus on the present instead of the past, and or doing activities to pull the mind to other places, more, learning new skills, things like that. And then I said that they could use MBSR to reduce their fear and anxiety because, using drugs can raise your fear and anxiety. So, using that type of meditation, like say they enter into a program, an 6 to 8 week program with other people, kind of making it a support group, but also learning mindfulness skills. And then, or just reducing the fear and anxiety without them using drugs, like to kind of prevent relapse, if that makes sense. I don't really have a lot right now to it, but it's a start.
When the thing is a problem, accept it. If you accept that they confined in that cell, that make them more crazy, right? Because they don't accept the situation, and that's why ACT is good for them to recognize it. Okay, so next one.
I actually haven't done it yet.
Oh, really?
I had to go out of town this weekend, but was expected to, so I haven't looked at it yet.
You ready?
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Um,
Who is your client?
I chose somebody who uses cannabis or marijuana as a medical, no, not abuse, as a medical, for medical purposes, right? And they're in the state of Indiana, which has potentially high crime punishments for that, whether it's medical or not, because it's not legal here medical like it is in other states. So it's a person who's not a criminal normally, but they're making a choice to do something that's technically illegal, even though they don't feel as a morally convicted that it should be a crime. So you have a person who has a conflicted opinion about whether what they're doing should be illegal or not. Like they feel they have the right to do that, and the government shouldn't tell them that they can't use a plant as medicine if they so choose to do it. So they've gotten caught with the substance, and then they've been arrested. So now it is a crime, and they've been convicted, and they're going to jail. So I thought, well, how would you counsel someone who's probably very angry and very upset and probably has a high level of stress about going to prison because they're normally a law-abiding citizen and they don't go around committing crimes. They're just going to work and they go home because maybe they have chronic pain or insomnia or something that this plant helps them to deal with. So I thought, well, the first thing they have to do is to accept the fact that they broke the law, regardless of whether they agree with the law or not. The fact is a fact. You can't, just because you disagree with the law, doesn't mean you didn't break it. I mean, you're in a state where it's illegal, so now this is the deal, you know. So the first thing for helping them reduce their anger and their stress, which is be to, okay, accept. This was my choice. I knew that it was illegal. I broke the law, so now this is the consequence I have to pay. Whether I still disagree with the law or not, this is where I'm at. So I think helping them accept where they are in the present moment, whether they like it or not, accepting it and trying to move on every day from that while they're in their sentence would be helpful to them to reduce their stress on a day-to-day basis. And also, I chose MBSR because it reduces stress and because I thought, well, if I was a psychologist who was working with people in misdemeanor prison, I would probably try to set up like an MBSR program, group therapy in the jail that I worked at, if I was allowed to do that. Because then I can help people who are in similar situations in group sessions and try to bring this person into my session and help them who are their day-to-day working on this, because they might have a lot of time to meditate being in jail. So it might help them to deal with being there and accept that they're there, and also to deal with, you know, if it's chronic pain or if it's insomnia, maybe the meditation and being in the present moment and not worrying about it. Maybe it will help them deal with their pain and or your stress levels or their lack of whatever their issue is, because when they get released from jail, they'll be on probation and they'll be drug tested, and if they fail, they'll be right back in jail. So you have to help them to deal with whatever issue causes them to want to use it as treatment, because even after they get out for some time period, they won't be able to go back to that treatment or they'll be back in jail. It's like an endless circle. And so you want to help them to, like she said, we imprison people who are either addicts or who use, you know, a plant that's illegal. We imprison them instead of giving them drug treatment, because all of those programs kind of got killed whenever the war on drugs was started. So we need to really work on giving those types of people programs to where they don't get caught in that revolving door. I mean, our state doesn't have the 3 strikes law like California, but that's why there's so much overcrowding, because in addition to people going to jail for being addicted, there's a 3 strikes law, and you can just end up life in prison for using drugs, and that's an addiction. So fortunately that doesn't happen here, but I mean, that's why there's so much overcrowding, and that's why they're having to just start releasing people, because, you know, they're nonviolent criminals. So I think helping a person deal with whatever the root cause is that makes them think, I need this medicine. You have to make them understand, even when you get out, you can't go back to your form of medicine because it's not legal there unless you're willing to move, which you can't do till you're done with probation. You've got to get through your probationary period, and then if you want to move to a state where it's legal for you to use this medicine, like Ohio or many other states, then that's your choice. But you can't live in a state like Indiana and use that as medicine. unless you do not get caught. So I think that would be the key to helping them not end up back in jail a bunch, and helping them just deal with the day-to-day. Because somebody who's done a misdemeanor, first-time offense, they have to go to jail, and they've never done any other crime. I think that would be a lot of pressure, and they really need daily therapy, at least on their own time, to be able to deal with it and not become a criminal. Because I think sometimes these people go into jail not criminals, and the things they have to face, because jail and prison can be violent. You know, there's a lot of opportunity to commit more crimes in jail.
And there's so much drugs in there.
So much drugs.
There's so much. A lot of them will even admit to the officers that they get more drugs when they're in prison than out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just flowing in there. So I mean, if you're an addict and then you get put in prison, it's not going to stop you from getting drugs.
It's the worst
if
place
you want them,
you
you're
can
going to
go.
get them.
Yeah, it's the worst place an addict can go because there's
And
so
that's why
much
they join
drugs.
gangs. There's like 4 different gangs in that prison, and that's why that people join gangs, because they get free drugs for it. So the addicts aren't getting help when they're going to prison. They're getting in gangs, and they're getting in more trouble, and they're getting free drugs.
And the thing is, you can't just go to jail and just be all by yourself. You pretty much have to join a group because you need protection because of all the violence. And you get in a situation where you can just, even if you're not a drug addict, when you go to jail, you might become one while you're in there.
With it.
Because you can't protect yourself unless you're with a certain group, and you can't be with that certain group unless you meet certain criteria,
Do drugs with
which is do drugs and commit crimes to help them smuggle drugs or do whatever it is they have to do. So somebody who's a first-time offender, I feel like that's a really bad place for them to be, especially if it's a drug issue. I mean, people need therapy for drug issues, not prison. And until our country can figure that out, we're going to have a lot of this. We'll just keep going. It's horrible.
Yeah, even like on the level of like iOS, living on campus, the judge in Floyd County has like told our police officers and has told our housing and like everyone, it's like part of our job now to tell them that if they are caught with marijuana while they're a student here, it will not be removed from their record ever. Like, it's kind of like you have that on your record forever. And used to it would be like removed after a certain amount of years, but they've like changed things, and they are, in my opinion, overly harsh. I mean, especially like even one time caught with this, I don't think people should just smoke for the heck of it. But, and yes, it is illegal, but at some point they're college students. They're going to do things, and they're going to get in with wrong people. Even if you're not smoking and you're with someone, you're still just as guilty now. And it's not going to work.
You can go to a class and get it removed if it's like.
They are like.
They don't allow you to do that.
No,
Indiana's really strict.
Like.
So you say even if you want to smoke?
Yeah, like you're going to be in just as much trouble. Like we've had to search. I haven't. It's usually the police stuff, but. Like they search rooms and they question all the roommates. Even if there's only one person smoking, they go through all your rooms. They question you, and you better hope that your roommate doesn't have any drugs in there, because you're going to be almost as guilty as they are.
How do they have the right to search a room?
Like probable cause. Like if they see,
smell, hear of it, like some. I mean.
And if you share a room with your
roommate,
you don't have your own room.
Right, which makes it difficult, and I
still can't prove that you know that your roommate knew.
Right, and like through the questioning, there's a lot of questioning, and I mean, a lot of the times the roommates, they understand, or the police understand that the roommates have no clue, or aren't involved at all. Like maybe they knew about it, but they were always told, we do that off campus. It's not here in your room. Like, I'm responsible. I don't do it here type thing. And then they end up being caught with it, and the roommate's like, I honestly had no clue. Like, and like through questioning, they can figure out that the roommates were not involved, but it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of those roommates' time and like effort that they shouldn't have to put into it because they're not doing it.
It's not an effective way to stop it. I lived on campus, and I didn't stop.
We
stopped at 11:55.
Yeah, 12:15, is that right?
No, not
11:55.
Oh, 11:55? Oh, shorter?
Sorry, I should have said something. I didn't look at the clock.
So you have the exam?
Yeah, we have an exam.
Can you give me a couple of minutes? finish to wrap up. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I called it to 11, 12, 15. So they shortened the times, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, the next one. So this Wednesday, yeah, this Wednesday we I hope I set up this room this one. Now, probably you have not served in the army or navy before, right? Okay, so this is the next assignment. So imagine that you are lieutenant general or army officers that you may command many people, many soldiers, and so forth. So I list out the thing that you may consider in your model. I pause this on the assignment. So let me see.
So do we just pick one of those or a couple of them?
It's up to you.
Sorry, I was late. I thought it was at
Okay. Yeah, I messed up the time today too. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll have to come on next time. We're 2 hours late because I just assumed that meant show up 2 hours later.
Till half an hour to be back to the normal times.
Yeah, I hope so.
That more snow?
Yeah, 4 inches.
4 inches?
4. It took me like 30 minutes to get my car cleaned.
Oh, really?
It was a mess.
One.
14.
7.
They don't, I guess they don't really understand their own emotions, and they don't really see what happens from point A to point B once they experience the rage and then act upon it. So I guess I would do what I read, what I learned from other psychologists who have worked with people who have done that, and I would say that just teaching them about stress and how it affects the body, and teaching them about the difference between your emotions and someone else's actions, and how to separate the two, and slowing down and learning how to breathe in a moment when you are feeling angry. And also, I think it's really important for psychologists to keep in mind where a person is, especially where a person is if they've gotten to prison, their backstory, what they went through as a child. So I looked at this one PowerPoint called Prison Health Best Practices, and I learned about the 60% of people who are in prison and who were affected by alcohol withdrawal, and all the different things to keep in mind as a psychologist. So a study of 18-year-old youth with FASD, which is, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but these are people who have, like I said, been affected by alcohol withdrawal. So what they found was that organization or self-care and hygiene was that of an 11-year-old. Social skill development was that of a 7-year-old. Word recognition, 16-year-old. Physical maturity, 18-year-old. Emotional maturity, 6-year-old. Understand time and money like an 8-year-old. Think and process like a 6-year-old. So emotional maturity and think and process both 6 years old, and social skill development 7. Sound verbally 20. So I think as a psychologist, I have to keep that in mind, and they may need more of in order to understand mindfulness and how to be calm in prison. And breathing techniques are really important. There was one thing I read about a woman who had murdered someone at a time when she was enraged, and whenever she started to feel rage while she was in prison, she would focus on her breathing, remember that whatever she was feeling didn't have to do with the other person who was maybe maybe prior to her learning about mindfulness, she would think that they were the ones instigating her, and then she realized like the difference learning about that. So I would talk to the inmates about that, and overall health and well-being techniques and tools that they may not have learned. A lot of the people in prison, like a very, very high percent, were in foster care or were raised by people who weren't their parents.
So,
So how's the day? It's cold. So it's pretty early, right? Not to get snow. This year.
Yeah.
Okay, so how is the project? How is the model? Is it easy? Yeah, it's okay. So this not first. So what do you do with it? What do you do with it?
We dealt with I guess because I was reading a lot of their files about people who had committed or had murdered someone, and I guess for a lot of people who did that, rage was a huge problem, and that was something. And a lot of them also didn't have higher than 6th grade education, things like that. And also I read that I think 60% of people in prison were affected by alcohol in utero, and that causes so many problems, and I was reading the statistics on that. And so a lot of these people who end up